afternoon. We are semi-live here at the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews, your host, and we're in beautiful downtown Orange Beach, Alabama, at the Wharf, home of the famous Marlin statues and the famous escalator statues, home of the cornerstone of the Wharf, Sand Dollar Lifestyles, which is where I get my shirts. And this one, the Salt Life shirt, is a particular favorite of mine because I can put my phone right there in the pocket when I'm doing stuff, and I can listen to Audible and listen to an audiobook with my phone in the pocket. And hey, if you're new to us, we would appreciate you guys putting the notification button on if you're on Facebook, and then turn the notifications on your phone too. That way, anytime we go live here at Wisdom Harbor Studios, you will be notified that we are live. And also share. If you don't mind sharing, we got a good show for you today. We're going to talk about the 7 historical stupidities. How about that? Is that a good name? 7 historical stupidities. We'd like to welcome you LinkedIn people in your suits. We would like to welcome the YouTubers and ask you to please click that submit button right there, if you will. Twitter people, glad to have you with us. And so go ahead and share. Go ahead and share to your page. We'll wait. Okay, I'm sure you've done it by now. Hey, Bob Woodall, Dothan, Alabama. And there's Sandra Mendonca from Searcy, Arkansas, home of Harding University, where they ate their mascot. That's right. It's an amazing story. If you hadn't heard it, I'll tell you some other time. There's the Olsons in Utah. Glad to have you guys with us. No elk this year, huh? Well, I hate that. But at least you didn't have to take care of it, you know. That's what I always say when I don't catch any fish. Well, at least we ain't got to clean them. And let's see, who else we got? George Kosser from Senatobia, Mississippi. George Kosser the third, Ole Miss icon. You can't like your head coach. You just can't. I'm just saying. Who else? There's Mr. Luker. We're glad to have you with us. And Yvonne Palmer. There's Deanna Kilpatrick. Everybody seems to be having good weather. I'm seeing nice, cool weather, and we're glad to have you. Kevin, the old man, is with us. Where's Judson lately? I hadn't seen Judson on. I guess he's got a 1-year-old, so not a lot of time to watch television. I wouldn't think. Okay, you guys ready to get to it? These are 7 historical stupidities, and one of them is kind of modern history, and so we'll go with that one first and just get that one out of the way. But this was from New Orleans, and it was a good idea, but it just didn't turn out well. This was August 1st, 1985. And a party was being thrown for the lifeguards of the New Orleans Recreation Department. And the party was to celebrate the first year ever in the history of the New Orleans Recreation Department in which nobody drowned. Can you imagine? They're having a party to celebrate a drown-free 85. There were 200 people at the party, and more than half of the 200 were lifeguards. And then, because they were having it at one of their swimming pools, they had 4 additional lifeguards that were stationed on duty. And when the party was over, you guessed it, there was a body on the bottom of the pool. Oh my God. This is sad, but it was a 31-year-old who was not a lifeguard, and neither was he seen by a lifeguard, you can file this one in the drawer marked irony. So that just was amazing to me when I saw that. 104 lifeguards at a party of 200 people, and they're celebrating nobody drowning, and a guy drowns. I don't even know how you pull that off. I mean, if you wrote that in a story, people go, that's stupid. That's not going to happen. Okay, number 2. Now we're going back in time here. The 55 delegates who attended the Constitutional Convention. Now, this was from May 25th to September 17th, 1787. I'm thinking they had more on their minds than just creating a new form of government. Now, I have some Revolutionary War era stuff in, is it here? Is it in that one? Okay, I couldn't remember which case it was in, but one of the things there, I mean, that's a canteen, a Revolutionary War canteen. It's a little stool that officers would put their boots up on, and the brush that somebody would brush the dust off of them with. And I also have a bill there for the Continental Army, and the bill is for blankets from somebody selling Continental Army blankets. So, but when the Constitutional Convention in 87, they'd won the war, and so now they're creating a new form of government. But I'm thinking they had a little more on their minds. I think they were also there, like other people who go to conventions, they were also there to party. Because one receipt that was dated 2 days before the official signing of the U.S. Constitution, one receipt listed, among other items, 156 bottles of liquor for 55 guys. And this is 2 days before the signing. Alexander Hamilton, who was one of the framers of the Constitution, at the time was under doctor's orders to consume no less than 3 glasses of wine per day. And the fact, when you think about it, the fact that this regimen was considered moderate says a lot about the drinking habits of our forefathers. Or maybe we should call them our fifth fathers. I mean, it is amazing, isn't it, to be able to drink that much and still have the mental capacity to formulate a new government. Wow. Our founding fathers evidently had a pretty strong constitution. That's just funny to me. Okay. All right, when we think, here's number 3. When we think of the Puritans, we usually imagine these wholesome, clean, God-fearing, uptight people in black clothes with buckles on their hats and their shoes. But were the Puritans really that puritanical? And because they left Europe, now think about this, they left Europe because of religious intolerance. But have you noticed a pattern of people that are against intolerance? Have you in your lifetime, Matthew, have you noticed a pattern of people who are against intolerance? Sometimes they seem to be the most intolerant people that I've ever seen in my life. And so the Puritans left England because of religious intolerance. But once in Massachusetts, they denied their own settlers any religious freedom at all. In fact, religious dissenters were expelled from the colony. Seems they weren't actually big fans of democracy either. The first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, John Winthrop, described democracy as the meanest and worst of all forms of government. So, justice to the Puritans evidently meant just us. In Boston, Massachusetts, we're still going with this same theme here. In Boston, Massachusetts, in 1634, a carpenter named Edward Palmer was commissioned by the town's elders to build the first wooden stocks intended for public punishment. Remember, what those things are, right? After completing the work, Palmer submitted his bill for £1, 13 shillings, and 7 pence. £1, 13 shillings, and 7 pence. Evidently, that bill blew the buckles off the elders. Puritan officials felt the price to be so high as to be considered extortion, and they voted to punish Palmer. Now, he was charging them £1, 13 shillings, and 7 pence. That was so much to them that they fined him £5. And they ordered him to be placed in the stocks. So he became the first victim of his own handiwork. I guess that's a classic example of someone being forced to take stock of himself. I mean, but this is true. This is true historical stupidities. And we have a couple left here. On April 14th, 1865, one of President Abraham Lincoln's last acts before stopping work for the day was to formally establish the Secret Service. April 14th, and he signed the thing that formally established the Secret Service. They were originally for the purpose of preventing the counterfeiting of America's currency. So he signed it, and he's through with work for the day, going to enjoy the evening, headed to Ford's Theater with his wife. And later that night, John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln at Ford's Theater. And of course, he was relatively unguarded. Booth got behind him in the booth. I mean, opened the doors and comes in and shoots him. Lincoln was unguarded. After signing the thing creating the Secret Service. Now, Congress soon debated adding presidential protection to the duties performed by the Secret Service. But like most things in Congress, they only thought about it. They didn't actually do anything. But finally, in 1894, the Secret Service was assigned to begin informal part-time protection of President Grover Cleveland. Informal part-time protection. This was a full 29 years after the assassination of Lincoln and 13 years after the assassination of President James Garfield. I guess the Secret Services were secret a little too long. It's just amazing to me. I mean, they can do that. I spoke to Congress one time, and a news person, all the news people were there as we're about to walk into the room, and one news person said to me, so you're about to address Congress? I said, yes. And they said, so the new statistics are out that that 13% of Americans have faith in Congress. Now, does that surprise you? And I said, actually, it does. And she said, it does? I said, yes. I mean, where would they find 13% of the people that think they're doing a great job? And then I went in and spoke to them. But speaking of Congress, or at least, I guess, politicians in general, some people say that protecting the freedoms of religion, the freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and freedom of petition were the most important issues facing our new nation. And people say that is why they're in the First Amendment. That's why those things are in the First Amendment, because people say that was the most important thing. However, James Madison, who's credited with writing the Bill of Rights, initially proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution, but only 10 were approved. This now famous First Amendment, with the freedoms of religion, speech, assembly, press, and petition, this now famous First Amendment was actually the Third Amendment in Madison's original draft. What? Oh, you want to know what the first two were? Well, the first two dealt with congressional pay raises and reapportionment. So even at the beginning stages of our country, politicians were first and foremost interested in money and power. That's hard to believe, isn't it? It's just hard to believe, just shocking. Okay, here's the last historical stupidity. And this one really is. This is historical stupidity whose stupidness just kind of has rolled through the years. And you know how you go, wow, I could have bought Apple stock for $1 a share. And if I'd bought 500 stocks, it'd be worth $25 billion now. You know how many people do that? Okay. And think about these guys. Alexander Graham Bell, he created the telephone. Okay. Now, when he created the telephone, he actually decided early on that he was just going to cash out on the invention and sell it to Western Union, Western Union was a big deal at the time. And they're still in business, okay? But I don't know, when you're talking about percentage of the money earned in America, they were probably a lot bigger deal then than they are now. But Alexander Graham Bell decided he was going to cash out, going to sell the telephone to Western Union. Now, one would think that an invention of this importance would have been snatched up immediately. But surprisingly, Western Union gave Bell a lot of static about his idea. The committee that was formed to review the telephone and Bell's proposal, that committee stated the following: the telephone, so named by its inventor, A.G. Bell, is something he believes that one day will be installed in every residence and place of business. Bell's proposal to place his instrument in almost every home and business is ridiculous. The Central Exchange alone would represent a huge outlay in real estate and buildings, to say nothing of the electrical equipment. In conclusion, the committee feels that it must advise against any investment in Bell's scheme. We do not doubt that it will find users in some special circumstances, but any development of the kind and scale which Bell so fondly imagines is utterly out of the question. How about that? People at Western Union were off their cradle. And so, I mean, these was like Bell Labs, Bell Telephone. I mean, it's like, good grief. And Alexander Graham Bell, um, when he died, he had 17 personal patents. I mean, he invented the gramophone. Uh, he actually had a couple of boating patents and actually held a water speed record for a while. But when he died, during the funeral, all across America, the phone lines went silent in his honor during the funeral. So there you go. And that's enough stupidity for today. I mean, I could keep talking and show you a little more stupidity, I guess, but King Solomon said, just keep your mouth shut. If you just don't want people to think you're stupid, better keep your mouth shut rather than keep talking and prove it to them. So we've been semi-live today, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. But we appreciate you being with us and hope you have a good rest of your day and a good Wednesday. Bye-bye.